In today's video, we're going to be going over some overachieving, super strong, long-lasting clone fragrances that oftentimes give the original a run for their money. In some cases, they last longer than the original. In other cases, they're right there with them, which when we talk about a few of these, that in and of itself is pretty impressive because the originals of some of these are already really, really strong. And the fact that you can buy something for a fraction of the price that will last just as long is pretty incredible. So for clone fragrances, for the budget, in this video, we're kind of looking at everything $50 or less for clones here. I know sometimes the prices on these have crept up a little bit over the years. A lot of that's just because they're newer releases, some of these. And over time, they'll start to drop back down a little bit more. But $50 or less is a pretty comfortable, wiggle room area here, but a lot of these might fall under that by quite a bit as well. So we're actually going to start off with a new clone from Maison Asrar, which has really quickly become one of my favorite new clone brands, and I'm excited to see what they continue to put out. This one is Vanguard. Absolutely love the bottle on this one. Just very sleek, very classy. It's also pretty heavy too. Has a really good feel in the hand, nice click-on cap. Cool texturing. It looks really, really sharp. This is one that doesn't really look like a clone fragrance. It doesn't look like a Middle Eastern bottle, which a lot of the clone brands oftentimes will. Some of them are getting away from it. Fragrance World has been really going after actually cloning the bottle to some extent, which is getting away from that. But this is something that does kind of blend in with all of your designers. So this is actually a clone of Creed Absolute Aventus. Now, that one on its own is already a strong scent. So the fact that this one can keep up with that performance, coming in at I think around $45 for this, is really impressive. Absolute Aventus, I think you're looking at, around $300 or so on discounters. And they have changed it from 75 ml up to the new 100 ml format now. So there's a difference in price there as well. Again, I'm not 100% sure on what it's going for. I think sometimes you can get testers for a bit less. But either here nor there, still a big difference in price. And Absolute Aventus essentially is kind of giving us what we've been asking for to some extent, where it's a sweeter, heavier, richer take on Aventus. That's what it is. We had Aventus Cologne years ago, which is kind of the opposite of what we've all been asking for. And so finally they came out with Absolute, which is basically taking that existing DNA and reworking it into something that is heavier, richer, and considerably more strong, especially by today's standards when you place it up against new batches of regular Aventus EDP, which has diminished in performance a little bit over the years compared to the older stuff. So that's essentially what the Absolute does. Still has that pineapple, but it's a sweeter pineapple, more of a heavy oak moss focus. And so Vanguard follows a very similar blueprint here. It's just taking that pre-existing DNA and just amping it up even more. Stronger performance, heavier scent all the way through, where for me, Creed Aventus has always been a summer scent. Absolute Aventus and this one, not so much. These are a little bit too sweet for my personal liking in summertime. They're just, sweet is one part of it, but also just heavy, rich, and woody. They're bulkier scents all around, is I guess how you could describe it. So I kind of view Absolute Aventus in this as more fall, winter, and probably spring as well. Just when there's a bit of a cooler temperature in the air, that's when I like this one. But really strong performance out of this Vanguard. The quality is amazing. That's one of the other things I like about Maison Asrar is the quality. These have been exceptional so far of the ones I've tried. And again, they're relatively new from my understanding. And so I'm excited to see what else they put out, but they're on a roll producing some amazing stuff. All right, now this next one from Rasasi is Hawas Verde. So this is going to be our LV Pacific Chill inspired by scent, Louis Vuitton Pacific Chill. So this one really does get you in that ballpark. And it's kind of interesting. They came out with Cobra, kind of going after imagination with a little bit of a twist. And they came out with Verde, not too long after that at all, which is of course going after another very popular summer-based scent from Louis Vuitton. And it does get you really close. Has all of that lime, all of that bright citrus and the fruits. And then it has that sour punchiness about it as well, which is very, very specific, in terms of the way that it smells and the type of lime that's being used. is nearly spot on with the type that is being used in Pacific Chill as well. Just that sour, punchy vibrance. You're getting that in here just like you get in Pacific Chill. And I'll tell you that Pacific Chill, in my opinion, is not for everybody because it is so bright and citric and sour. Not everybody really likes that, you know. It's something that is kind of on the extreme end of things. You know, typically we'll look at citrus fragrances as being relatively mass-pleasing, and they are most of the time and definitely can be. But if you push it a little bit further, you kind of get into a territory that some people might not prefer. It's kind of like a sweet scent, right? You can have it a little bit sweet, but with balance, and then most everybody likes it, but you push it into that ultra male level of sweetness, and then, you know, now you're really kind of making it more polarizing. That's kind of how I view this DNA, you know, so keep that in mind. Now, obviously, the Louis Vuitton is not very blind buy safe given the price point. Now, you can buy a sample online if you're lucky and you happen to have a Louis Vuitton store near you. You can try it in person, but it has to be at a Louis Vuitton store because they don't even sell those at other retailers. Or honestly, you know, for the money, you were looking at around that $40 range, you could just buy a bottle of Verde. Worst case, you don't like it, you're out 40 bucks. How much are you going to spend on a 10 ml sample of Pacific Chill? Probably, you know, somewhere around there. And, you know, best case scenario, you love it. Now you've got a full 100 ml bottle of something that gets you in that category very, very close, with exceptional performance. Very, very strong. This is perfect for spring coming up. This is also really, really great for summer as well. I personally think that as long as this stays in stock, this is going to do very well this season, this spring and summer. Because this came out at the end of last year, kind of in fall, winter time, just not very good timing for us in the US. And so, you know, I think, again, given those circumstances, and I said this when this came out last year, that I think this one could be the scent of the summer for sure. Really good, nice, bright citrus. It just smells like summer vacation to me. This next one is Latafa Maher Legacy. Now, this is going to be a clone of Parfums de Marly Sedley, which I absolutely love. I love that minty, green, citrusy smell with all of the musk and ambrox. And, you know, to me, Sedley is kind of like their take on a blue scent. And people are also going to argue that maybe Percival was too. And maybe it was, but Percival is a little bit more, well, I should say it's not quite as bright and green and kind of minty like this. Rather, it's even more musky, more cashmeran based. It doesn't have that type of vibrance to it. Still probably spring and summer leaning, but it doesn't really have a summery smell about it. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like a, you know, an Abercrombie and Fitch Fierce type of scent, or you know, a Mont Blanc Legend type of scent, just with all the musk that it has going on in there, just that kind of traditional cologne-y type of smell. And I don't really consider Fierce slash, you know, Legend to be like a summer scent or a spring scent. It's kind of just an all year round versatile thing, whereas Sedley more narrows in on that spring summer season. And that's, again, that's why I like it. And of course it's expensive, but this one is not. This is around, I think, $39, maybe $40 on average. Why 39? I don't know, just because I feel like I've seen it priced at 39 many times, but somewhere around in there. Definitely under $50 for this easily. And I believe this is actually it doesn't say. I wanted to say that this was a 125 ml, but it might only be a 100 ml. Either way, nice presentation, heavy cap, cool looking bottle, kind of top heavy. You got to be careful when these are stacked up. You know, they could kind of go tumbling. But if you want something close to Sedley, this is about as good as you're going to get. This next one is Al Haramain Amber Oud Carbon Edition. This might be the best Creed Green Irish Tweed cologne that we have on the market. And there are quite a few. The most notable one is probably Armaf Très Nuit, which is around $20. So that's going to be pretty much the cheapest one you can get. And don't get me wrong, Très Nuit is still an amazing scent. If you have it already, you're probably set. You probably don't need this, you know, it's just redundant at that point. However, if you're looking to purchase a green Irish tweed clone and you want the best for the money, to me, this one makes sense. It's about double the price of that Très Nuit, okay? But, you know, for me, the quality shows, the performance shows, the blend shows. That lemon verbena, ambergris mixture here is just nearly spot on. And this one is to the point where, honestly, I think I would have a hard time telling the two apart if I were trying them blindfolded. And, you know, I would like to say that I would be able to tell a good number of things apart, you know. But I'm okay with admitting when I feel like I might not be able to because the clone is that good. Kind of have to give credit where credit's due. And that's where this one falls. This one's in that territory where I wouldn't feel as confident about it. I think like Cobra, Rasasi Cobra up against Imagination, I could tell those apart. I think I could tell apart Verde and Pacific Chill. You know, I just think I could. But this one here, this one is... it's a different story. This one's in a different ball game for sure. So great quality, really, really good performance as well, especially up against modern batches of green Irish tweed, which is what everybody's pretty much going to be buying. I've got some old bottles of the stuff, the 75 ml with the green kind of felt on the front, you know. Those are pretty, I gotta say, those are really strong. They're very potent. But the newer ones, you know, the 120 ml bottles and, of course, even the 100 mls, not quite the same level of potency with those, but I was even telling a difference between my 120 ml, which at this point are kind of old. So this one kind of goes back to that OG richness of green Irish tweed and also that OG performance that was significantly better in the older batches. This next one I think is around $20 or so. It is Alhambra Alpine Homme Sport. And I think we're all pretty well aware of what this one's going to be a clone of. It's a clone of Chanel Allure Homme Sport. You know, the nice thing about this is that it's a clone of Allure Homme Sport on its own. You know, we've had things that get into this category. Versace Pour Homme, which, you know, it came out after the Chanel, but also it did a different take on it, right? Brighter, fresher. Could you call it a clone still? Probably, but clone with a twist, okay? And then we have Missoni Wave, which combines the two. A little bit of Chanel, a little bit of Versace into one. Very good scent. But this is just a straight up clone of the Chanel. So that's nice for those who don't want the brightness of the Versace, you don't want the mixture, you just want something that smells like that Chanel for 20 bucks. This is it. You know, it still has the C notes and the orange and just a little bit of that creaminess from the tonka bean and stuff. Of course, not as much as Sport Eau Extreme, but it's in that category nearly to a T. And, you know, for me, I could go back and forth on which one I prefer, the Versace or the Chanel. If I had to pick just one, it would be the Chanel, but I still love the Versace, specifically in times where it is hotter outside and I want that brightness. But I would say year-round or just overall, I would typically reach for the Chanel more so. And so it's nice to have a clone that gets you into that category, again, for like $20 versus paying, you know, up over $100 for that Chanel. This next one is Harmony Code Absolute. This one is by Fragrance World. If the color of the bottle doesn't give it away, then, you know, I'll give you a hint. It's Armani Code Absolute, which they discontinued. And this one here smells very, very similar. You get that same type of beautiful vanilla benzoin mixture, and then that nice suede, kind of leathery undertone as well. And of course, all of that tonka bean sweetness. Such an amazing smelling scent. They really were onto something with this DNA. And this one here is essentially an embodiment of that. You know, it gets you surprisingly close, but at a fraction of the cost, of course. And the nice thing about it, again, being that it's a Fragrance World, you know, they didn't straight up clone the bottle, but they did get the color pretty close, kind of that champagne color, you know, with the gradient going on down to the bottom. I actually don't know if the Armani has the gradient. It's sitting behind me. I could look. I guess it kind of does have the gradient. Wow. Yeah. So see, I mean, again, attention to detail is pretty impressive here. Black cap, of course. You can see the similarities for sure. But yeah, if you want something that gets you into that DNA just without spending the money on that, then there you go. Now this next one is a clone of a discontinued fragrance, which is amazing, just kind of like Code Absolute, although Code Absolute was kind of resurrected a little bit. This one is nowhere to be found anywhere except for about right here. It is Fragrance World, the one and only Moonlit Night. So this one, of course, is a clone of the one Luminous Night, which was very short-lived. That one was by far the most fleeting. The one exclusive edition flanker. We had Royal Night and Mysterious Night for years. Consistently in stock on discounters. They were no problem to pick up at all. And then they kind of started to get a little bit tricky to find. And then, okay, not Moonlit Night, Luminous Night. See, I'm getting them mixed up. Luminous Night came out, and that was out for a little while, like a couple of months on discounters, and then sold out, and it's pretty much never been seen again. So luckily, Fragrance World is on top of it here. They came out with this. Kind of has that same type of creamy sandalwood focus that Royal Night had, but also They're adding in dates. They're adding in almost a little bit of a smoky incense accord as well. So not so much tobacco, more incense. It does have more of a exclusive Middle Eastern smell. Not quite to the level of Mysterious Night, but also more so than Royal Night. Royal Night was by far the most inoffensive one. I mean, that one almost couldn't even really pass as an exclusive edition because that one easily could have been a designer release, in my opinion. But this one here is just kind of somewhere in the middle, giving you a little bit more of that exclusive kind of premium smell, but not too far that it's unwearable. Last up for this video, we have Dumont Nitro Red Intensely. This is kind of an embodiment of a lot of other more so popular DNAs, you know, kind of like a little bit of Hawas, a little bit of Y, a little bit of Invictus. It's not cut and dry in terms of smelling exactly like one thing or another. It's just a bunch combined into one. And personally, I think the Intensely version is by far the one to get over the original. With the Intensely, you get a nice magnetic cap. You also get an extrait concentration as well, and it does perform better. Now, that original is no slouch. It performs great as well, but this one does perform better. So if you're gonna buy one, I would just go for this. If you already have the original, that's kind of gonna be up to you whether you think it's worth buying this one or not. This is like 45 bucks, you know, if you want it, go ahead and get it. And maybe you'll find that you like this one better, or maybe not, you never know. But personally, I love it stuff. I think it smells great. Yes, it's playful, yes, it's young. But for me, it just smells like summertime happiness, and the performance is also an added bonus as well. Alrighty guys, that's gonna do it for me. Some clone fragrances that are so strong, they can rival the original, or in some cases, exceed the performance of that original. This will be down below. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you tomorrow with another one. Take care.